Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called What One Human Can See, written by Darmanarya. Krelzen sighed as she slid the brush around her four eyes. The beautiful magical paint leaving shifting trails of colors wherever she applied it over the more mundane makeup that she was forced to use. She would love it if others could properly appreciate how the paint contoured with her scales and met her horns. But alas, not many had the sight for it. She still did it though. She wanted to look her best, even if the only one that could admire it was her with a mirror. With the last task done, she stepped out onto the cobblestone path in front of her rather nice home in the artisanal district. Sure, it cost a penny, but she avoided the hiss of the steamworkers or the clattering of the countless clockwork contraptions that seemed to be appearing in more and more places around the city every day. After the boiler explosion in the food district a few moon cycles ago, she couldn't really blame people for opting for the noisier but safer clockwork, even if she had to watch her tail as she walked around more and more each day. She adjusted her robes and started to walk towards the nearest marketplace when she noticed a bunch of her artisan friends walking far slower than normal, all openly looking at the same thing. Curiosity finally took a hold of her and guided her eyes to what they were all watching, a lone figure in one of the many squares. Her eyes had trouble keeping up with the thing as it twisted and turned, pausing to lift up a view scope to one of its twin white and blue eyes. She had seen many newcomers to the capital before, but none had the sense of wonder this man did. His eyes almost as wide as his mouth, with his head twisting and turning to take in sight after sight, only pausing to glance down and take notes in a clearly new journal. Krelzen knew what it was. The pink skin, strange head fur that also adorned this one's face, and clearly warm-blooded body was the talk of many right now. A human. A whole large group had recently appeared next to a town in some far-off place that, frankly, she cared more for her chamber pot than wherever it was. The humans had, however, immediately set off to make names for themselves. 5 new heroes that rose in the ranks of the Adventurers Guild at such a pace, priests had to be called in to ensure there was not suicidal. 2 had formed a trading company that one of her friends constantly hissed about, and a few did other things, like cook to introduce new foods or other things. She removed the gossip surrounding one such human already, courting a noble woman that was a bit, past her prime with such skill, that even a married woman were caught openly complaining to their husbands about their lack of skill. Rumor was the man was now making a living selling poems and advice to said husbands. Her friend in the census was laughing about how the season had become more productive for couples than normal as well. Well, her shopping trip wasn't that important. She had to witness one of these humans for herself now. She sat on a bench near the fountain to watch the man continue his movements. It was entertaining to see just energy and wonder. Few had such pleasure to view it these days. It honestly made her a bit jealous, as she hadn't seen such wonder at any of her expeditions in years. If this mundane-looking plaza filled the human with such wonder, she tapped her chin with a claw. Her apartment was clean enough for a little company, and she found the idea of someone admiring her work very enticing. Suddenly those eyes locked on her, and he paused. She chuckled as he looked around, finding everyone else avoiding his gaze, as many probably wrote him off as a bit stone-brained. Finding she was the only one looking his way, he jogged over with a smile on his face. "Hello, ma'am. I'm sorry if I'm bothering you," he called out as he drew closer. Now that he was getting near, the scent of the oil drifted into her nose, and she couldn't help but frown a little in disappointment. He had the scent of one who worked with machines. Few of those gear gropers had any appreciation for art. "It is okay. If you have any questions, I might be able to answer some," she calmly said, trying to not let the disappointment reach her voice. "Thank you. I got a bit lost trying to take all of," he waved his arms around a bit, "this in. I mean, we have never had magic where I'm from, and our technology was so different. To go from wires and gears to steam and springs," he let out a whistle that started to regret allowing this oil liquor to talk her. "Shame it's all ugly." She paused in shock and looked at him. "Excuse me?" she asked, not able to fully take in what he'd said. "Sorry if it's an insult, but it's all so utilitarian." He let out a long sigh. "I was a designer back in my world. It was my job to look at tech and make it look good. We humans are always good at getting ideas from nature and more, and working them into our designs to help them both mechanically and to make them prettier. He was an artisan mechanic. She had never heard of such a thing other than those that made clocks. Even then, most of them used designs passed down for generations. I mean, the designs of some of the statues here are of a style I have never seen before. He continued on, motioning to some of the statues around the fountain. And I traveled the world. He let out a sigh before pausing, staring at her face so long she grew concerned. She had yet to see a human stop moving until now. But now his eyes were focused on her own. It was almost scandalous. "Oh, of course," he yelled out, causing a few people to jump before he sat down. A long, narrow face piece to house the crystals would make it a bit front-heavy, but with the decorative horns and the counterbalance, he started putting out metal gears and glasses before setting to work weaving magic to fuse what looked like a scrap together. And instead of the long tubes like goggles, why not simply add in an extra set of receptors above the primary? As he mumbled working, she moved closer to watch. It was almost like watching a sculptor at work, how he bent, stretched, and changed the metal only for him to slip in gears, magical power lines, and more like a well-trained mechanist, a blend of art and utility. It was a bit flattering, she had to admit, that the mask bore more than a little resemblance to the head shape of her own species. There! He held up the finished headpiece and slipped it onto his head. Now, let's see what I get. He then tapped the glyph on the side of his face cover, slid down over his face. He winced a bit at something, but then started to look around. I can see it, he muttered to himself, the magical flow. She was impressed. Normally, it took a bulky bag, ugly, and huge goggles, and more to get basic magi vision. This human managed to not only get it in a smaller package, but make it look good as well. Sure, the fact that she inspired it did make her biased, but it wasn't just metal and pipes. Then the human looked at her again. Oh wow, I thought your makeup alone was pretty, but the magical paint you use makes your face look truly shine. Her tail curled up. It had been too long since someone had truly commented on her face paint. The species that naturally could see it never said much when the rare one was nearby, and the mechanists with the proper gear never cared. I do have some paintings I would love to show you in my studio, if you'd want to see them, she offered, moving closer. He nodded, not looking away from her face. If your face is painted so beautifully, even if nobody can see for a normal day, I can only imagine how beautiful your paintings are, he replied. Plus, I would love to get your help in painting this mask. I have some skill in painting, but I would much rather work with a master. Oh, that sealed it. This human would be hers. Story number 2. And They Laughed, written by Shock Lionheart. In the beginning, the Orcs laughed at man, for he was small and unimposing and ineffective in a fight. In the beginning, the Dwarves laughed at man, for his mines were but scratches in the soil, and his finest engineering works unworthy to be a Dwarven child's toy. In the beginning, the Elves laughed at man, for he was short in both stature and lifespan, and had no magic. And man fought with sticks, then stones, then blades, then bullets, leaving millions dead on all sides. And still the Orcs laughed. And man dug away the mountains and built with dirt, then stone, then iron, then steel, building towers, then soared into the sky. And still the dwarves laughed. And man developed medicine and surgery and germ theory and modern hygiene, sending child mortality rates plummeting. And still the elves laughed. And then man made the planet ring as a bell with the dropping of the first nuclear weaponry. The Orcs stopped laughing, and man rode atop a pillar of fire and walked on the surface of the moon. And the dwarves stopped laughing, and man delved into the secrets of genetics, teasing out the ever longer lives, hardier foodstuffs, and many other wonders unthinkable to his ancestors. And the elves still laugh when they think that we can't hear them, and it's a nervous laughter. End of story. Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Bushmaster 177, Henry the Red, Caspar Arnholtz, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Elijah Silvercross, Dragzoon WRE, and Severin Cerberus. Thank you very much.